Please. Okay.
بس هي اوكي اصابكم. احنا نسيت كيف اصور. أوب، بالضبط. اوكي بيطيح.
All right. My name is Taliyar. I think at least you know my name, or you don't know my name.
I know. طالع يا
Talal, that's the name. Okay, from Pakistan. So we'll be discussing the motor part of nervous system. There was an online lecture. How many of you attended the online lecture? Only 3% attended.
and I had
Rest of them were sleeping.
maybe
So what do you know about motor system? Just quickly.
we should
Yes.
Control the body,
Control what?
the motion,
Hmm?
the motion.
Yes, actually. So the first thing about motor system, very simple, straightforward, is that this is concerned with movement. Excellent. So how it is controlled?
we said the sensory system from the peripheral parts send a message to the brain and sends the motor back.
Very good. So most of the movements, they require some of your sensory input. Can you give an example? What sensory thing is required for movement? Come back into the class.
You touch something hot,
Mhm.
take your hand off immediately.
So very good. He has mentioned one example. You touch something very hot, so it is going to be dangerous for the body, so you take it. Excellent example. Any other example? Why you need sensory information for your motor activity? This is the question. Why do you need sensory information for any movement?
No, I think that
You are thinking. Yes?
you can't walk without feeling the ground.
Excellent. You cannot walk without feeling the ground. Any other thing?
Take care of ourselves from the dangerous thing.
Very good. You have to take care. You have to be aware what is going on around you. Yes? Yes? Any other thing you want? Why do you need sensory information for motor activity, for movement? You are doing like this. Is it? Why are you doing like this? No. Why are you doing like this?
We feel something there, uncomfortable.
Yes. Something uncomfortable. And you know, this is the place. So how do you know that this is the place where you are feeling an uncomfortable sensation? And once you do like this, then what do you feel? No more discomfort. That's why you stop doing it. Isn't it? So for every movement, yes please.
You need sensory because you send impulse to the muscles for movement. Without this impulse, you can't. The muscle
Without what?
You send the sensory impulse for the muscles for movement. Without this impulse, the muscles cannot move.
Why? Yes, what what is in your mind? What sort of control? I want to do like this.
Contract or relax. the
I want to
muscle.
do like this.
Okay.
So what is the thing in your mind? What is to be controlled?
We need to relax the muscles, the biceps.
Okay.
Okay. So the mind will send the impulse to the muscles, so will be relaxed.
Yes, you're right. The thing is that you need to know whether your muscle is relaxed or contracted. This information is required, isn't it?
Yes.
Where is your hand? If you know that your hand is there, then you start doing like this. If you don't know where is your hand, then what will happen?
So it's still
Huh? There will be a confusion, chaos. You don't know the beginning. Very good. And as he has mentioned initially, that whenever you touch something dangerous, you take that part away from that dangerous thing. So what is this sort of movement known as? Involuntary. And which type of muscle is involved?
skeleton.
Skeletal. Skeletal is involuntary muscle?
No.
The same muscles. The same muscles.
All muscles.
Skeletal muscle is voluntary or involuntary? Voluntary.
Skeletal.
And you said that the movement is involuntary.
Okay.
Did he say like this? That movement is involuntary.
This movement's
This movement is voluntary or involuntary?
involuntary. The action is involuntary, but muscles is voluntary.
Very good. So this is so you are correct. Don't worry. So this is an important thing that by skeletal muscles, okay, by skeletal muscles you can have voluntary movements and you can have involuntary movements. Okay, involuntary movements are called reflex movements. What?
Reflex move.
Reflex. They are. So you have got movements. One is reflex and other is, we can say, goal directed or voluntary. And all these movements are with the help of what we are discussing is skeletal muscles. Not smooth muscles, not cardiac muscle, only skeletal muscles. Okay. Now, what I would like you to just keep in mind a few things first, and then we'll go through the slides. So, for example, this is your skeletal muscle, biceps. Okay. So, what is in your mind that where is the neuron that is controlling this muscle?
Inside, right. Controlling what? The contraction and the.
My question is, the nervous system is controlling the muscle.
Okay.
Where is the neuron present controlling this biceps muscle?
Inside it. Inside it. Around it and inside it. It's like a wire from the bicep to the brain, to the spinal cord.
Neuromuscular branch between the muscle and the neuron.
Okay, there is a neuromuscular junction here. This neuromuscular junction, of course, this is the axon of the neuron, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so where is the body of this neuron? Where is the neuron itself present?
Not inside the tissue. Or
In the central nerve.
Hmm?
In the central nervous.
Yes.
it
In the
comes
central nervous system.
What is central nervous system?
from the spinal cord.
Excellent. So the neuron is present in the central nervous system, not in the muscle.
Okay.
Okay? So, I will just, if it helps me, say, think that this is your spinal cord. Okay? Of course, the spinal cord, there is left and right half. Fine?
Right.
So the neuron controlling this muscle is present here in the spinal cord. Okay? So this is one thing you must remember. You must remember. Now, the reflex movement which you told initially, because of some sensory information, so we will make that this is a receptor. And what you told me is just consider that this is a pain receptor. You touch.
Take it.
Okay?
Okay.
So how it had to, the information is going to go to spinal cord. And will go to this, maybe with one or two, I'll just make one. So this is a synapse. Connection between one neuron to other, that is again a synapse. Okay?
Okay.
So what happens when you touch something which is dangerous? Information goes in the spinal cord, and this information goes to this neuron which is controlling this muscle and muscle
Reflex.
contract. Is it okay?
Okay.
This is the basic thing. You always get a question. So if anybody has any confusion, tell me. Question number 1, your exam. Clear?
Clear.
So what you have got is a receptor. Then this is what? Afferent. Taking information from the body to the center. This is the center. Center means integrating center, which is going to make a decision. Okay?
Decision. Yes.
So spinal cord is part of the central nervous system. Then this will be efferent, and this muscle is called effector. Okay? Effector means the one which is going to do the job. Alright? So this whole thing, this is called reflex pathway. So what are the important things in reflex pathway? Can you just quickly tell me? Just read.
I can't see.
Come here. Go close and then tell me. Pathway is something, a road, say from your house to the university. So here is, this is the reflex pathway. How the reflex starts and how the reflex occurs. So what do you see? Start from receptor, then
then enter
center, then
efferent
then
effector
so this is what?
reflex pathway.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. Now, this is actually a communication, isn't it?
Yes.
It's like a wire, multiple wires connected together, whatever. So, what do you think if the wire gets broken? What will happen to the reflex?
No reflex.
No reflex. If the wire, the whole of this wire from anywhere it gets broken, then
No reflex.
no reflex. Okay. Is it clear? There are some diseases. As physiotherapists, maybe you may not be saying here in this country, but back in Pakistan, we see a lot of patients where there is a damage here. Okay? These cells which control the muscles, they are destroyed by a virus which is called poliovirus. Poliomyelitis. So now, if this thing happens, then what is going to happen to the muscle? No
Reflex.
control.
No control.
And the muscle will shrink and actually muscle atrophy. Very good. And may Allah protect us all. If there is an accident and there is damage to the nerve, then the same thing ultimately, that no reflex. Okay. So broadly speaking, this is number one, that you must know that we have got reflex movements and this is the
pathway.
pathway. There is a direct connection from the spinal cord to the muscle. There is no neuron in between. Now, if I want to do a voluntary movement like this, whatever, how that will occur? Where is the neuron? This is the reflex. Where is the neuron present for voluntary movement? Brain.
Immediate signal from the brain, yes.
Yes, there has to be a neuron present in the brain that will give us the information, and I will just this is the brain. Okay, again it will be right and left. By brain here we mean cerebral cortex. Okay,
Okay.
and this is in between is the brain stem, and this is spinal cord, of course. Okay, clear?
Clear.
Now, the neuron that controls your voluntary movement is in the brain. So, what do you think? Which side of the brain, right or left? If I say that this is left and this is right. Now, we have to basically control this neuron from the brain. Very good. So the neuron is here, and the axon comes like this. Okay? What has happened?
It's opposite side.
Yes. This is the first thing. The body is being controlled on the opposite side. My right brain controlling my
The left side.
and my left brain controlling my.
The right side.
Okay? So please don't forget.
Okay.
Throughout the body. Now the other thing is that this neuron which is present in the spinal cord is the same neuron which was involved in the reflex, isn't it? The same neuron is involved in voluntary movement.
Alright.
All right. Now this neuron and this neuron, they are named like this. This is a motor neuron. Okay, and this is also a motor neuron. This is at a higher level, so it is called
Upper.
and the
lower.
Lower.
okay. So we have got two neurons. One is upper
Upper.
motor neuron, which is used for
Signal from the
voluntary
brain.
movement.
Voluntary.
It will produce voluntary movement through activating.
Yes, that's it.
Get back, get back. Why you are lost? It is difficult for you to understand.
No.
So upper motor neuron is controlling the muscle through lower motor. Okay? Through lower motor, so no direct connection. And lower motor neuron has got a direct connection with the muscle. So either it is reflex movement or it is a voluntary movement. For both of them, you will have to use your lower motor neuron. So this one diagram is the basic diagram for motor system. You must know. Okay?
Okay.
Even in the exam, you can get an SAQ short answer question where this diagram or part of this diagram is given, and you are asked various questions about that. Very simple, straightforward. All right. Now I'm going to give you another reflex, a very important one, and we can come back to it later on also. How we know that our muscles are contracted or relaxed? So there are some receptors present inside the muscle. And that receptor cell body somewhere. So what I have drawn is a receptor inside the muscle, and this receptor is called muscle
spindle.
So what is this?
Muscle spindle.
What I have drawn? Muscle spindle. What is it? It is a receptor. It is a receptor. So what do you think may be the function of this receptor? It will tell you about the length of your muscle. Whether it is stretched or contracted. Okay? See, I have made it like a spring also. So it can be stretched and it can be shortened. So this is muscle spindle. The function of this is to tell you about the length of the muscle and also change in length of the muscle. Okay?
The length?
Yes. Okay. Now, if the muscle is stretched a little bit, what will happen? This receptor will also be
Stretched.
stretched. Okay. So when this gets stretched, say the muscle becomes like longer like this. So there will be more impulses coming to the spinal cord. And once the impulses come to the spinal cord, there will be stimulation of this lower motor neuron, and this muscle will, what will happen?
Contract.
Contracts. Yes, very good. Okay.
Yes.
So whenever the muscle spindle is stretched like this, then immediately there is activity and the lower motor neuron is activated and the muscle gets contracted.
Contracted.
Okay.
Okay.
Now all our muscles basically within our body, they are slightly stretched. Say for example, biceps is connected here and here. And in a normal person, this is slight stretch of the muscle. So if there is a stretch on the muscle, then muscle will also show a little contraction. This is called muscle tone. What?
Muscle tone.
Skeletal muscle tone. That's why all our muscles, they are not loose, they are not flabby. If you go to a pasab, you see the meat there and it is very flabby, isn't it? You touch, it will just move like this. But within a living body, the muscles do not do like this. They are slightly contracted. So this state of partial contraction is called skeletal muscle tone. Skeletal muscle tone. This is a very important thing. All our muscles have got a little tone. Now just see, if we are standing straight, so we are not absolutely like a pillar. I will exaggerate. All the time we are doing like this.
Yes.
Okay? Very slight degree. Maybe like this also. So when I am going forward, what is going to happen?
Your calf.
Muscles at the back will be stretched. They will contract and they will bring me back. But as I am going back, the muscles in the front will stretch. They will bring me
To
forward.
forward.
And there is a balance between the two. That's why I am
Standing.
erect, but with a slight sway. Slight movement like this, which I am exaggerating, but it is very little. But it is not like a pillar. It is not like a pillar. As he is putting his mobile here, it is like a pillar. It's not moving.
Yes.
But as human beings, we are all the time, any living creature will be all the time having a little bit of movement. So this muscle tone is very important in maintaining your posture. Okay?
Okay.
As soon as I stretch my hand to the outside, my center of gravity will change,
Yes.
isn't it? And if there is no adjustment in the tone, I am going to fall, isn't it?
Yes.
So this is a very important reflex, which I have just told you. The name of this reflex is muscle stretch reflex. This is the most important reflex in our body. Okay? As far as our motor system is concerned. Because this is responsible for skeletal muscle tone and in turn is responsible for maintaining our posture. Clear?
Clear.
This reflex is also important clinically, as you will see in your labs also. That, say for example, this is my quadriceps muscle, okay?
Okay.
And this is inserted there in the tibia. And there is a tendon here.
Yes.
If this tendon is pressed in because of the particular arrangement, my quadricep will be stretched, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay? So if something strikes here, the tendon will go in and the muscle will Stretch.
Stretch.
If the muscle is stretched, then the muscle spindle will be
Stretch.
stretched. If the muscle spindle is stretched, then information to
Motor. Brain.
not brain,
Muscle.
lower motor neuron will be more. So lower motor neuron will be activated. It will cause contraction of the quadriceps. So what is going to happen that if something strikes here, my leg would go like this. This is a voluntary movement or involuntary? Involuntary. Excellent. It was started because the muscle spindle get stretched. It sends information to lower motor neuron, and the lower motor neuron makes the quadriceps muscle contract. It's a reflex movement. So just by checking the reflex, we can also find whether this reflex pathway is okay or not. Alright?
Alright.
Just doing this reflex can tell us the receptor is fine, the afferent is fine, the center is fine, the efferent is fine, and the muscle is fine. And if there is a damage, maybe here, then this reflex will not be present, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay? So muscle stretch reflex is a very important reflex, and you can see from this diagram there is only a single synapse here. Information directly coming and transmitting to lower motor neuron, and this is directly connecting to the muscle. So it is called a monosynaptic reflex. Mono, single, one. Okay?
Okay.
There are other reflexes which I told you before. That was the flexor withdrawal reflex that had at least 2 neurons. Okay. Any questions? Now I am going to go through the slides quickly. We will have to finish the things also. So if you find anything difficult, but this was the most important concepts. You must know these things. You will always get questions from all these aspects. Okay, these are the objectives and views. So we have got the types of movement. Reflex is the involuntary and the goal-directed voluntary movements. You are also familiar that we have got a lot of muscles in the body. Some of the muscles are right in the middle. They are called axial muscles. They are basically for your posture. Okay? So this area, this would be related to your axial muscles. And then for movements of the trunk, then proximal muscles are these for shoulders and elbow, etc. for movement, pelvis, knee, and then distal muscles. So, any confusion about this? Because this is very basic information you must be knowing. These muscles are
Just
distal muscles. These muscles are
prox-
proximal muscles. And this one, movements, these are
the
axial muscles,
axial.
which are related to your vertebral column, center. Okay? So axial muscles are for the movement of trunk, maintaining your posture. The proximal muscles, they are critical for locomotion, and the distal muscles are specialized for fine movements, like writing, eating, whatever it is. All right, and then what we discussed about somatic motor activity. So soma means body. Any movement which performed by the body depends ultimately on the activity of spinal motor neuron, whether reflex or voluntary. This neuron, its other name is another name is alpha motor neuron. Alpha motor neuron. This is also called ventral or cell, sometimes like VHC. So these are names for this lower motor neuron. Sometimes this and sometimes that. The next important thing which is written here is physiologically you only contract the muscle by giving a command. How to relax? No command, then it is relaxed. So there is no specific inhibition sent by the motor neuron to the muscle. So what is going to be excited or inhibited? This motor neuron. If it receives a plus impulse, it will cause contraction. If it does not receive a pulse impulse or it receives a negative impulse, inhibitory impulse, then the muscle will be relaxed. There are no two separate neurons, one for contraction and one for relaxation. Only single neuron. Okay? And this is the same diagram which is here, just to re-emphasize that how the upper motor neuron, its axon comes down and it crosses to the opposite side and then it makes synapse with lower motor neuron. Okay? This diagram is basically to give another message to you that depending upon the site where a disease may affect this thing, you can imagine where will be the effect in the body. Say for example, the upper motor, this is from here till here. This is upper motor neuron. Okay? Now, if the upper motor neuron gets damaged here, effect will be on the opposite side, isn't it?
Yes.
If it gets damaged here, it will be opposite side. But if it gets damaged here,
Opposite side.
now it is on the same side.
Okay.
The damage is here and the effect also is
Here.
here. Do you get my point now?
Yes.
You need to keep in mind the point of crossing over. If the damage is below that, then the effect will be on the same side. If the damage is above the crossing, then basically it is on the opposite side. Okay? Now this one is called cortico-spinal tract. Tract is collection of axons. Here we have drawn only a single one just to keep the diagram clear. Otherwise there will be maybe 10,000, 20,000 axons. So put together they are called tract. So this one coming from cortex to spinal cord, so that's why its name is
Tract.
cortico-spinal
Spinal.
tract. This is also called a motor tract. It is also called a descending tract. Cortico-spinal tract is the one which is responsible for this, especially the skilled movements, the fine movements. Okay. So just the same diagram which is given here, so I don't need to spend any more time here. Okay.
Okay.
This is the reflex which we started with. This one. All right.
Right.
Now, how we classify the reflexes? Somatic reflexes means reflexes which are produced externally in the body, which you see. Some of them are superficial reflexes. By superficial reflex, we means the receptor will be present either in the skin or mucous membrane. Like the one which you mentioned in the beginning, you touch something, that is a superficial reflex. Okay?
Yes.
Then there are deep reflexes. Deep reflexes means the receptor is present deep in the deeper tissues like muscles. So this reflex is a deep reflex
Deep reflex.
because the receptor is present where?
The
In the
muscles.
muscle. So these reflexes, they are present deep in the muscles, or there are some other types of receptors which can be present in the tendons. Then there are visceral reflexes. Viscera is what? What is the viscera?
Abdominal.
Inside the body, like stomach, urinary bladder, gallbladder, all these are viscera. So visceral reflexes, they involve either smooth muscles, cardiac muscles, or glands in our internal organs. Okay? So we can have, say for example, when we put food in our mouth, some secretions start coming in the stomach also. It's a reflex. Okay? Then there are postural reflexes. I have told you these reflexes that act against gravity to maintain the body in an upright position, and the underlying reflex about posture is also the stretch reflex. So the myotatic stretch reflex or muscle stretch reflex, this is the other name, myotatic stretch reflex. Sometimes we also make an abbreviation like this, MSR. This is the simplest reflex. It is monosynaptic. Physiological significance, I have told you that it maintains your muscle length and is very important in muscle tone. And clinical significance, that it maintains the tone and we can check the tone, and we can also do some tests like jerk, which I just mentioned a short while ago, tendon jerk, knee jerk, and you will see that later on. So same diagram now, muscle spindle is there. And this is what is going to happen. So this is the hammer, it strikes the tendon and the leg goes forward, an involuntary movement. You always get a question from this reflex, either in your theory exam or in your lab exam. Okay? So you should be very clear, where is the receptor in the muscle? What is the name of the receptor?
Muscle spine.
Muscle spindle. This is the afferent, here is the center in the spinal cord, and here is the effector, the muscle itself. And it is helping you to stand erect against the gravity. Then we have got another reflex, which is called inverse stretch reflex. Inverse is, so to say, opposite. And it has got an additional neuron, so it is disynaptic. What you see here is that there is a receptor present in the tendon of the muscle, and this receptor is called Golgi tendon organ. Function of this receptor is to detect the tension or force generated by the muscle. Okay? So now you have to keep the difference. Muscle spindle detects length of the muscle or stretch on the muscle. Golgi tendon organ detects force generated by the muscle. How much tension is there? How much tension is there? You have seen weightlifting? So when they lift a weight, what is happening to the muscle? Of course, it is the ability of the muscles to contract and then raise the thing, isn't it?
Yes.
And you must have seen that sometimes they pull it up and boom, it goes down.
Yes.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
So what happens at that time? The tension is too much. Tension is too much. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given this as a protective phenomena, that if there is too much tension beyond the capability, what might happen is avulsion of the tendon. The tendon gets broken from the bone, or there is a tear in the tendon or tear in the muscle. Okay? So if the force becomes too much, this Golgi tendon organ gives a very strong signal, and what you see that this signal also goes into the spinal cord, and there is a neuron which is an inhibitory neuron. It will inhibit the lower motor neuron controlling that muscle, so muscle gets relaxed. Muscle gets
Relaxed.
relaxed. Okay?
Okay.
So because of this inhibitory interneuron, you see the opposite effect. Instead of contraction, it is relaxation. Okay? And the same neuron also stimulate the opposite group of muscles. You are familiar with this concept that we have, for elbow joint, we have got, if we say that bicep is agonist, then tricep is antagonist, isn't it? So we always have these pairing, agonist and antagonist. If agonist is contracting, then antagonist relaxes. If this one is contracting,
Relaxes.
it will relax. So similarly, here also the information for one is to relax, and the information for the other will be to contract. Okay? So these are the questions that are written here. Any piece of information can be asked. Inverse stretch reflex, it is disynaptic. The receptor is Golgi tendon organ. Stimulus is increase in muscle tension or force because of excessive stretch or because of excessive active muscle contraction. What is the response? Relaxation. It is a safety measure, so it is a protective reflex in that manner that it regulates muscle tension and protects the tendon from tearing. Okay? This is the first thing which you told me, withdrawal reflex, touching and then withdrawing. It is a polysynaptic reflex, more than two synapses. Again, it is a very protective reflex, and the stimulus is the painful stimulation either in the skin or subcutaneous tissue or even in the muscle. And ultimately, you have got the response as stimulation of flexors leading to contraction, say biceps, or in the case of leg, it will be this quadriceps muscle taking you away from the dangerous thing. And the underlying physiological circuit is called reciprocal innervation, meaning, just as I explained a little while ago, that if the agonist is contracting, then antagonist must relax. How it happens with the same message? You have got one neuron which is excitatory, interneuron, and the other one is inhibitory, interneuron. Okay? So there is simultaneous inhibition of antagonist leading to relaxation, and this is what I mean, reciprocal innervation. The painful stimulus here, the receptor takes the message, converts the message and sends through the afferent pathway into the spinal cord. And what you see here is messages dividing into multiple branches, isn't it?
Yes.
There is 1, 2, 3 at least. Can be more. Number one is with an excitatory interneuron, it is going to the flexor, the biceps. Okay. Number two, with the help of an inhibitory interneuron, it is going to the triceps, the extensor. So this is what is reciprocal innervation. So you may be given this diagram in your exam, and we can ask that this is an example of what? We can give you certain option, and one of the option will be reciprocal innervation. Okay? And the third one is going to go
motor.
sensory pathway to the brain. So you can feel the pain also.
Oh, okay.
See? Now the question is, do you feel the pain first or you take your hand away first?
Hand first.
Yes? Take the hand first and then you feel the pain?
Yes.
No.
How?
حسب المسعى المسعى هذه فين؟ لا
لا أصلاً تاخذ قبلها بسبب
لفتي وهذا
يمكن أحس
Yeah, you will have to fight.
it's closer. The inhibiting in the stimulus is closer than the brain.
All right. We feel the pain first and then we withdraw. Raise your hand. Who is in favor?
I don't know. It should be pain first. How do you move without feeling? But the tendon, like the inverse, like when you get so much force, there is no muscle to the brain. It immediately relaxes and contracts the other. Same here.
And those who are in favor that first you withdraw, then you feel pain. He has made his point more clear, huh? So you're right. Huh? Okay. We said in the beginning that reflex or involuntary movements,
So
no need of brain. Okay? Everything doing within the spinal cord. And he has also mentioned anatomical basis also, very clear. Thus, this is the shortest pathway. It will take time to reach the brain. It will take time to reach the brain. The time is, say, 1 millisecond more than what happens at the reflexor. It is not many hours or many minutes. It's a matter of a fraction of a second only. So you first withdraw involuntarily. This is not a voluntary action. And then you do a voluntary action that I am feeling pain. Okay?
okay,
Clear?
clear.
Now an extension of this reflex is, say for example, I am walking, I put my foot onto something very dangerous, sharp object. Immediately what is going to happen to me? So I put my right foot there, isn't it?
Yes.
It will be like this. So now instead of two legs, I am onto my
One leg.
one leg. And if this leg also collapses, what is going to happen?
Fall.
I will fall down and maybe fall right onto that sharp object. Isn't it?
Yes.
Too much dangerous.
Yeah.
So what happens? Another reciprocal innervation circuit is present in the spinal cord, which produces opposite effect in the opposite leg. Opposite means the flexors, they relax, and the extensors, they are stimulated. So it becomes a supporting reflex which serves to maintain the posture. Again, this will be a polysynaptic thing. And there, another physiological phenomena, we call it as irradiation, meaning the message further spreads. And there will be reciprocal innervation, and this is what happens then. Okay? So this is the stimulus, the same thing which we have just described in the previous diagram, flexor withdrawal reflex. But now you see the message is going to the opposite side of the spinal cord, controlling the other leg. But the control becomes opposite. Here there is excitation of the flexors. Here you see the flexors are, see here, from here, flexors are inhibited. Okay? Here the extensors were being inhibited, and here the extensors are being stimulated. Okay? So there is a reversal of sign in order to make this leg firm, so that your body is supported, it does not fall down. So this is an example of reciprocal innervation. Here it is also reciprocal innervation, and the message spreading to different areas. This is example of irradiation. Irradiation. Radiation, you know, it just spreads. So irradiation is from that. So this is a supporting reflex that occurs. This is called crossed extensor reflex. Okay. So should we continue, or you want 5 minutes break? Break.
Works. It's okay.
5 minutes break only, because we have something to cover and finish.
Yeah, it's okay. نستك
Please, can you ask your friends to come?
الله يساعدك.
ما تسوي كامل
جوازهم كيف شو اعطيتك بالطرح
You can start, doctor. It's recorded.
All right, please. Now we'll just go into a little bit more detail about voluntary movements and then some of the diseases. Okay? All right. Please have a seat, please. You can do the attendance later on also. Okay. So now what we discussed about voluntary movement is that we have got the upper motor neuron in the cerebral cortex. Okay?
Okay.
But in order to have a smooth movement, a normal movement, in addition to cerebral cortex, we need cerebellum and basal ganglia, two more structures. Fine. If there is a disease of cerebellum or a disease of basal ganglia, then our movements will not be normal, but we can still move. But if there is a damage to cerebral cortex, we cannot move. Okay?
Yes.
So cerebral cortex is essential to start a movement, but once a movement gets started with the help of cerebellum and basal ganglia, it becomes very smooth. A normal movement is there. The signals from these three finally go to the spinal cord, as we have mentioned here, and then the appropriate muscles are selected for contraction. So for example, I want to lift the pen. It is not a single muscle. How many muscles are involved in lifting a pen? Just think. I am standing here and I want to lift the pen here. So what do you think? How many muscles are there? Such as? Name.
Abdomen, yes.
Trunk.
He said
Shoulder.
biceps.
Elbow.
Triceps for the extended and biceps
Wrist.
for the.
Finger muscles.
Yes.
So many muscles are involved, isn't it? So the whole program comes from top. And all the appropriate muscles, they get contracted in order to achieve a small movement. Okay? Now, within the cerebral cortex, you are familiar with this sort of diagram. This is the front, this is the back. The occipital cortex is basically for your vision. This auditory cortex is for listening. And this is an important mark, central sulcus. The cortex immediately behind that is, which is dealing with your sensations of the body. It is called somatosensory. And the one in front of central sulcus is primary motor cortex. So when we are saying upper motor neuron, this one, basically it is present here. Okay? The upper motor neuron is in the primary motor cortex, this one, area 4. There are other motor areas which are called supplementary and premotor areas, which are slightly in front of the primary motor cortex, and still other some association areas which are called prefrontal association areas. At the back also you have got a large area which is called parieto-temporal occipital association area. By association area means here sort of all integration and thinking is occurring. Your intelligence is here. Then what to do, what not to do. Your decision has to be taken. Okay. So in a very simplified way, we say this thing. The idea of a voluntary movement starts in prefrontal association cortex. This is where idea. This is an idea. I want to pick this. In order to have this idea, of course, I need to know where is the pen. What is the function of the pen? So, lot of sensory information coming from the association area at the back will come to this frontal association area, and then we have got an idea of the voluntary movement. Okay. Now this idea is sent to different areas in motor cortex, which are the premotor and supplementary motor areas, as you saw in the last diagram. This is the area, the premotor and supplementary motor area, where planning occurs. By plan, I mean that I want to come close to this student in order to ask him a question. This is my idea. So the plan will be that I have to take 1 step, 2 step, 3 step and move towards him. Isn't it?
Yes.
So this is a plan. In this plan, I have to contract one flexor and the extensor, then for the opposite leg, then I have to move my hand, then I have to point towards him, then I have to talk. So many things are going to happen. So a full plan or program is made where? In the premotor area. Premotor and supplementary motor area together, they make the planning and programming of a movement. Once the plan and program is there, this is sent to primary motor cortex. All the relevant muscles. So muscles of the leg, muscles of the face, muscle of the speech, muscle of the hand. So all these commands will be given to all the appropriate muscles, and then these primary motor area will send impulses to relevant lower motor neurons. So all through the spinal cord, whichever muscle is required, it will be activated. Okay? What do you see?
I don't know. What's it?
This is called a homunculus. It's a sort of a cartoon of a human being. But it is in a disproportionate fashion, isn't it? It is not in a normal proportion. So what is the abnormality here?
Hands.
Hand and the mouth.
What is the abnormality, hand and the mouth?
It is bigger than the other.
Yes.
Normal human.
The difference here is that the hand and the mouth is too big compared to rest of the body, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes.
Very clear message. Now you have to just tell me what is the reason of this. In terms of motor system, basically this is an homunculus, which means body is represented in the brain in this fashion. The representation of the body in our brain is something like this. Yes, you want to say something?
No.
All right. You just keep this message in your mind that the representation of face and hand is too big. Now come to this diagram. It will be more explanatory. This is the upper motor neurons of the whole body. Thousands of them.
Yes.
They are spread in the primary motor cortex. And the same message here, the number of neurons that are related to the face and the number of neurons that are related to the hand, there are many, many. Whereas rest of the body, very few, much few neurons. Isn't it?
Yes.
So now you have to just think quickly and tell me what is the significance, why it is like this.
How do you call it? Cooperation, not contraction.
Because we use the most.
كيف قلت
We
تناسق؟
use this the most. More than the other part of the body. We use fingers and the face, and it is need more specific. كيف أقول إشارات؟ Signals. Because of this, we have. a lot of
What do
space.
you mean by specific? You're right, in the right direction, but what is in your mind when you say more specific?
I can't explain it more.
In Arabic, what is in your mind? There is some idea in your mind why you use the word specific.
To avoid mistakes and.
Okay.
If you want
You're right.
to extend your arm, if the arm and the legs are in the same place, you will extend your knee by accident. If it's in the same place, that's why it's specific. But and to help تناسق, I forgot the word in English.
Use Arabic word. Anybody can translate.
تناسق. تناسق.
Matching.
Matching. The
Yes.
idea is
Okay.
Movement to those areas need to be accurate and specific.
So basically, you wanted to say specific is accurate. He has used the right word. Accuracy. Yes, you want to say?
The most organ have a skeletal muscles. A lot of skeletal muscles.
See, if you compare the hand with your leg, the amount of skeletal muscle is
Oh, monkey head.
very little. Any other idea? So the correct answer has been given. It is the accuracy. And the more correct word would be precision. Both words are right. Precision, precise. Even a very small dot. I forgot to put the slide there. There, I am living in Al Khobar. Okay. And once my watch was not working properly, so I went to a watchmaker there. This Swicket Street. He is an Indian guy, and became friendly. That was my first encounter with him. So we were talking, and then I introduced myself that I am working in the university. So he immediately brought out a small box. And in that box there was a rice grain, rus.
Yes.
And on that rice grain, La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah, full written
Hey, rice.
on the rice grain.
Did you see it?
Yes, I have got a photograph of that. So this is prescient.
Yes.
And such a small thing, full writing. So that can only be done if you are very, very accurate. Very, very.
Okay.
So this accuracy is the thing. The more accurate movements you can perform with the muscle, the more will be number of neurons in the cerebral cortex controlling those muscles. Okay?
Okay.
If you don't need a lot of accuracy, then you don't need a lot of neurons there in the cerebral cortex for that particular. Say for example, for the leg, you just need a lot of power, of course. If I want to kick my football to half of the midfield,
Yes.
I need power, but I don't need that it should fall in that centimeter.
Right.
It may be 3, 4, 5 meters area. If the ball goes there, it is sufficient. Okay?
Okay.
So it's very clear?
Clear.
The representation basically is proportionate to accuracy. These muscles of the face, see, just a little up and down of these folds give you the message that person is happy or angry or sad, isn't it?
Right.
A little up or a little down. From a distance you can see, oh, this person has got some bad news. Oh, he is very happy. Just a little movement. Okay. So these are the things what we have told you a short while ago in the last diagram. We have got a map of body on our cerebral cortex. You cannot see that map. Mapping is because the scientists, they have actually stimulated the neurons and checked that what happens to the various muscles. And this is what they have made a map. Somato means body, topic is map, organization of cerebral cortex, as you have seen. The muscles in a particular region of the body on the contralateral side, opposite side, are controlled by specific areas of the primary motor cortex. There is an area for hand, there is an area for face, and the mapping of the body muscles onto structure, we name it as somatotopy, and the cortical representation of each body part is proportionate in size to the skill with which the part is used in fine voluntary movements, meaning the greater the precision of a movement by the muscles, the greater is the representation in the cerebral cortex. Okay? So that covers our cerebral cortex, and I have told you the idea starts in the prefrontal association, then the programming and planning in the supplementary and premotor areas, then the command goes to primary motor cortex, then primary motor cortex sends command to lower motor neuron in the spinal cord to all the relevant muscles to achieve that objective. Now the major descending tract, that is from the upper motor towards the lower motor, is the corticospinal tract, as we saw in the initial diagram. Another name of the corticospinal tract is pyramidal tract. Okay? This tract is basically for control of all your fine movements, like control of the fingers and the hands. Other tracts, there are many of them, they are called extrapyramidal. The extrapyramidal tracts are to maintain your body in the right posture for any movement. Say for example, I told you that if I want to do this movement, this is a fine movement now, but my body, whole body has to be in a particular position. My shoulder should be in a particular position, my elbow should be in a particular position, and the distribution of tone should be there. So all this thing is by extrapyramidal tracts. So just to reinforce, pyramidal is for fine control. The upper motor neurons in the primary motor cortex directly connecting to the spinal motor neurons, or if it is in the area of face, it will be in the brainstem, and almost all of them they cross over to the opposite side. So this is an example. I told you mostly in a diagram we make only one axon. Here they have made it 5 to make it more clear that it is a tract, collection of axons. The extrapyramidal, all motor pathways outside the pyramidal tract are called extra, and they are basically supportive to
The
voluntary
voluntary.
movement I just mentioned a short while ago. And this is a diagram again for that. This one is the direct spinal cord, the corticospinal. And then the other ones, they do have a station in between in the brainstem. See, I made this brainstem also. So what happens? That some of the neurons, they make a synapse here and then they go forward. Okay? So this is what is happening there. From cerebral cortex to brainstem nuclei, and then from the brainstem to the spinal cord. So these are called all extrapyramidal tract. Ultimately, they are also going to have control of skeletal muscles, but mostly of the axial muscles and proximal muscles. Now, this is a cross section of spinal cord. This is a cross section of.
Spinal cord.
So have you seen such diagram before?
Yes.
Okay. So this is the gray matter and this is the
White matter.
white matter. This is the ventral horn. This is the dorsal.
Dorsal.
And these are the lower motor neurons. This one. They are present in the gray matter in the ventral horn. So each one is a single neuron with its axon going out for controlling the muscles. Now in the spinal cord also, we have got a regular pattern. Just as you saw in the cerebral cortex, some area is for face, some is for hand, some is for foot. So here also, the representation of different muscles is in a definite pattern, and if you just remember that as if I am standing like this. Okay? This is the center, this is the periphery. So these neurons which are towards the center, they are controlling my axial muscles. Then the middle one are controlling my
Proximal.
proximal muscles. And the lateral one are controlling my.
Distal.
Okay? Also, in addition to that, the ones which are towards the ventral side, they are controlling the flexors.
Flexors.
And the ones,
Extensors.
they are controlling the
Extensors.
extensors. Okay? So, within the spinal cord, also there is somatotropic organization, like this. The trunk muscles, the extremities, flexors, and the extensors. Okay?
Okay.
So what are these neurons? All of them are the lower motor neurons. Or other name is alpha motor neuron or ventral horn cells. Alright, the next concept is that I have made only one neuron connecting with the skeletal muscle. What do you think? How many neurons will be controlling our muscle? Many. There are many neurons which are controlling a single muscle. Maybe 1,000 neurons, 2,000 neurons that control a single muscle. So that whole pool of the motor neuron is called a motor neuron pool, but we are going to first concentrate on motor unit. So imagine that this is a small muscle, cannot be a biceps, it will be a muscle maybe of hand. This is one neuron, this is lower motor neuron, and what do you see here? It is connecting with 1, 2, and 3 muscle fibers, isn't it?
Yes.
If I want to contract this muscle fiber,
The other will contract.
what I have to do?
Contract the first.
I have to stimulate this neuron, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
But if I stimulate this neuron, will I be stimulating only this muscle fiber or something else will happen?
There is two.
This
1, 2 and 3. All 3 fibers will be contracting them. Okay? All of them will get the message. This neuron will not send message to a single muscle fiber. All the muscle fibers that are attached to this neuron will get the signal and they will contract together. Fine? This is what is a unit. A motor unit. A motor neuron with all its connected muscle fibers. That is a motor
Units.
unit. Okay? So it is written here a motor unit is one motor neuron and the muscle fibers it innervates. Now imagine that in order to lift one pen like this, the amount of power I need is just 3 muscle fibers are sufficient. Okay? So I stimulate this. Now I want to pick 2 pens. More power is required. So I stimulate 1 and
2.
2. Now I want to lift 5 pens. I need a little bit more power. So I stimulate 1, 2 and 3. So all the muscle fibers will contract. You get my point?
Yes.
That you can grade the power of the muscle by recruiting appropriate amount of
Motor units.
motor units. Motor units. You cannot stimulate a single fiber physiologically. It will always be a motor unit. Some of the motor units in big muscles, there may be 500 muscle fibers to one motor neuron. But the small muscles where you need accuracy and precision, you will have to have very small motor units. Okay? Just as in the cerebral cortex you saw that for accuracy you need a lot of neurons. So every neuron will be connected only to 2 or 3 fibers only. Okay?
Okay.
So for power you need big motor units. For accuracy you need
That.
small motor units. By big and small I mean one neuron connected with many fibers, hundreds of fibers. This is a big motor unit. By a small motor unit I mean one neuron is connected only with 2, 3, 5 fibers like this. Okay? For that accurate movement. Now, what will happen if the upper motor or the lower motor neuron gets damaged? We have already done what is upper motor neuron and what is lower motor neuron. Lower motor neurons are present in the spinal cord, or in case of the control of the face, it is in the brain stem. Upper motor neuron lesion. You understand what is a lesion? Damage. Any sort of damage is called a lesion. And you can write UMNL also as an abbreviation, upper motor neuron lesion. So upper motor neuron lesion means any damage starting from here till here. What? Any damage to the cell body or the axon in the corticospinal tract till it synapses with the lower motor neuron. So this whole is called a upper motor neuron. There can be damage because of trauma, tumor, vascular disorders such as thrombosis or hemorrhage, meaning stroke. Okay? And what will happen? Of course, if the upper motor neuron is gone or the corticospinal tract is damaged, no voluntary movement, isn't it? So there is loss of specifically the distal strength, and dexterity means control. There is no control and there is no power. Both of them are gone. Another thing that happens also is a Babinski sign, which we'll come to inshallah in the next slides. The next important thing, which is more related to the abnormal function of lower motor neuron, is increased tone. Now, just listen to me. What I mentioned, that muscle stretch reflex is basically the reflex that controls the tone. If the muscle is stretched, it responds by contraction. Okay. Now this stretch reflex, this is responsible for the tone. Just keep in mind that many impulses come from higher centers towards this lower motor neuron to control this reflex. Some of them are like accelerator, some of them are like brakes. Okay? So if you press the accelerator, then the reflex activity here in this circuit will be more. If you press the brakes, the activity becomes
Slower.
less.
Yes.
Okay? Under normal condition, there is a balance. So this is what we call the normal tone. Normal tone. In case of upper motor neuron, you can imagine that the brakes are lost. Brakes are
Just
so if the brake is lost, then what happens to the car?
going fast.
Fast. Uncontrolled fast. So this is what happens in case of upper motor neuron. This reflex circuit becomes hyper excitable, hyperactive. Hyperactive. So if I want to check the tone, then there is more feeling of contraction of the muscles. And if I do the reflexes like I told you, if I put the hammer like this, normally this is going to go like this. Okay? In case of upper motor neuron lesion, if I do like this, it goes like this.
Yes.
Okay?
Okay.
So what is this? Hyperreflexia.
Hyper.
Hyperreflexia. And tone is also more, that is called hypertonia.
20.
Hypertonia. Why the hypertonia and hyperreflexia? Because the brakes are lost. Upper motor neuron is normally acting as. Another thing that will happen is, because there is no more voluntary movement, so there will be atrophy of the muscle. This is called disuse atrophy. Disuse means it is very similar to what happens when a bone is broken and they put the plaster for 6 weeks. And once the plaster is removed, you see the muscles, instead of this big, it is small. But then by physiotherapy, it comes back to normal.
Yes.
The muscle is still there because the nerve supply is present. It's just it has not been used. It has not been used. So this one also, because it is not being used, there is disuse atrophy. So these are the signs of upper motor neuron lesion. So you always get a question. We will mix up the signs of upper and lower motor neuron and we'll ask you whether this is upper motor or this is
Lower.
lower motor. So you have to differentiate.
Okay.
Now what is Babinski sign? This is Babinski sign is an abnormal plantar reflex. A normal reflex is called a plantar reflex, and how it is done? You scratch the sole of the foot like this. From the lateral side with a blunt object, do like this. So all the toes, they flex. This is the normal response. This is what is called a plantar reflex. Toes are moving down. This is what is flexion. In case of upper motor neuron, if we do this thing, then instead of going like this, it goes like this. Especially the big toe goes up and all the small toes, they fan out. See, this is the example. Or like this. This is fanning out and going
Up.
dorsiflexion. Okay, instead of plantar flexion, it is dorsiflexion. So this is called a Babinski sign. What is Babinski sign? It's an abnormal plantar reflex present in case of upper motor neuron lesion. Yes, please.
Can a person do it for himself, or it will be like tickling yourself?
Yeah, you cannot do it yourself. It has to be done by an examiner. Okay.
Yes.
This reflex is a normal thing in small children, infants, 1 year old. So if there is a small baby in your house and you just do like this, they will show Babinski response. It's a normal thing there. but in an adult it is abnormal. It is a sign of upper motor neuron lesion. Okay. What happens in lower motor neuron? So I told you the example of poliomyelitis. It will also cause paralysis of the muscle because the muscle is not being sent the messages, and there will be either cause would be trauma, some neuropathy like diabetes or poliomyelitis. This is the example, and the things that you can see is loss of muscle strength, of course, no power and no control. This is called either paresis or paralysis. So these two things are common, an upper motor and lower motor neuron, but there is a difference. Upper motor neuron usually it involves large group of muscles, maybe the whole one side of the body. We call it as hemiparesis. But in lower motor neuron, it will be just for those specific muscles. Say, for example, it is only for leg, only for
Sure.
arm. Okay, so it is more localized, but upper motor is more generalized. So these two things are common: loss of muscle strength and loss of control. But we discussed in the beginning that if reflex pathway is damaged, there is no reflex. So if the reflex path is damaged, no tone or reduced tone, no reflex or reduced reflex, and because of denervation, the muscle becomes completely atrophied. This is called muscle wasting. Now the muscle gets converted into fibrous tissue. It cannot recover. This use atrophy can be recovered by physiotherapy. But this one, if the innervation is lost, the muscle gets converted into fibrous tissue, no recovery. And also there could be some hypersensitivity because of loss of nerve supply. This is called denervation hypersensitivity, where there can be fasciculations for some period of time, meaning if you observe the muscle, there will be fluctuations like this, which are visible by naked eye. You see that it is just trembling like this. So these are called fasciculations. They are present in case of lower motor neuron lesion. Okay. All right. So here we finish with what we discussed with the control, upper and lower motor neuron. And now I mentioned that these two structures, basal ganglia and cerebellum, they are very important for normal movement. If they are diseased, you can still have the movement, but movements become abnormal. So what are the abnormalities? We will just quickly go through. They are very important structures. Cerebellum, you know, it is present at the back of the main cerebral cortex, and basal ganglia, they are right deep in the cerebral cortex. In the cerebral cortex. Anybody knows what are the functions of cerebellum and basal ganglia?
It's like the tract. Somehow like the tract. It collects neurons.
Basal ganglia is a collection of neurons. Ganglion is basically cell bodies, collection of neurons. So the functions we will just go through. First thing, both of them are essential for normal movement. Okay? But by themselves, they do not start a movement. You need cerebral cortex for a movement. What do? They modify the movement and on an ongoing basis. Say for example, this is a movement. Okay? This is the normal movement. I just demonstrate one movement. I want to write A here. Okay? So what I have done, I have moved like this, isn't it?
Yes.
My arm goes up and I just do like in a controlled way. If the cerebellum is not working properly, you can just see something might be like this. So what happened?
No connection
It's not a smooth flow.
Yes,
Hmm?
that's smooth.
It's like first doing this, then doing this, then doing this, then going like this, like a robot.
Yes.
It's not a smooth movement. The movement becomes decomposed. It becomes decomposed. Okay. So this is what the cerebellum is very important, and the basal ganglia for smooth movement on an ongoing basis. And whenever the primary motor cortex sends a signal to the lower motor neurons, it also sends a signal to cerebellum and basal ganglia. So the signal is not only towards spinal cord, towards the basal ganglia and towards the cerebellum, and then they give the signals back to cerebral cortex, and it is loop. And they modify the movements according to the requirement. So some of the functions that have been studied is basal ganglia inhibits the muscle tone throughout the body. Okay? So the muscle tone that is basically originating because of the muscle stretch reflex, it is kept under control by basal ganglia. Slow down, slow down, slow down. Okay? So if basal ganglia gets diseased, the brakes gone. So what will happen to the tone? Increase. Okay? Fine? Say for example, can you come here? Whenever I just flex or extend, I feel only very little resistance. This is a normal muscle tone. Now you do not let me flex, okay? Now, in a case of basal ganglia disease, this may happen that I am trying to do, and there is a lot of resistance, okay? This is increased muscle tone, we call it rigidity. What? Rigidity.
Yes.
Because the normal function is inhibiting the muscle tone. That inhibition is gone, so muscle tone will become increased. And that is rigidity or spasticity. Thank you. Also, selecting and maintaining the purposeful muscle activity while inhibiting useless or unwanted patterns of movements. This basically means that, say, for example, I am walking. I can walk with my hands like this also, isn't it? But normally what happens? My arms are
Moving.
swinging. Okay? It helps me in keeping my balance more accurate. If I want to pick the pen, I can pick the pen. This is one program. This is one program of picking the pen. If I want to move my cap, I can do that. So what I want is a program that is present in my mind that is activated, and I achieve that. There are so many programs in the mind. Like bringing the hand here either to put something in my mouth, or bringing the hand here just to touch my ear. But these two are slightly different, isn't it?
Yes.
So what may happen in disease of basal ganglia, that you are sitting just cool and calm, and one of the program gets activated. You don't want that. But because the basal ganglia is not functioning properly, while sitting, the hand goes like this. This is a very small thing. It can also happen that you are sitting or talking to what happened?
Activated the program.
This is a movement which will be very useful in certain cases, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes.
But here it is an abnormal movement. Okay? Now our hands are very stationary, but in case of basal ganglia disease, you might see. Now I am going to demonstrate a typical patient of basal ganglia disease, which is called Parkinsonism. In Parkinsonism, what happens? Muscle tone is high. So even the axial muscles, the person becomes like this, stoop posture. And his hand and arms are also like this. There is increased tone in the legs also. And what you see, the abnormal movements, he is doing like this. pill rolling movements. These are tremors of the hands. Maybe tremors of the head also. And when he's walking like, okay, stooped, small steps. If you ask him to stop, so a normal person can stop there and then. But that person will
keep moving.
take time to stop. Then you ask him to start, then he may be just first doing like this and then start. So these are various things that happen in basal ganglia disease. We were talking about the purposeful movement and abnormal. The abnormal movements are tremors, and also it is helping in coordinating the slow and sustained contractions. Also, there is an important role in establishing motivation and desire for movement. This is what I just mentioned. If you ask him to do a movement, he's not doing.
He takes time.
Takes time. Either no movement or it's a slow movement. Slow movement is called bradykinesia. No movement is called akinesia. Okay? And also planning to the process of changing an abstract thought into voluntary role in planning of the motor movement. Say for example, a good thing is written in textbooks. If you are in a place all alone and a wild animal comes in front of you, a lion or a tiger, what should be the response?
Hardens on the muscles hardened. You be like ready for the lion. If he attacked you, will run away.
Yes. So this is a thought process that if there is a danger, I have to run away.
Yes.
Isn't it? So in case of basal ganglia disease, this process also goes very slow. He is unable to take the appropriate action.
Yes.
Okay. So planning defect is there. This is what I have already told you, inhibitory. So in basal ganglia disease, we have got this Parkinson's disease. So you must know the name because we will give you a question like this. In Parkinson's disease, what happens? There will be some abnormal things in movements, abnormal things in posture. Basically, the reason is there is loss of certain neurons in the brain which secrete dopamine. So dopaminergic neurons in one of the parts of basal ganglia, which is called substantia nigra, they are lost. So this is a comparison. A normal person has got a lot of dopamine secretion, whereas an abnormal person with Parkinson's disease, very little dopamine is there. Dopamine is a neurotransmitter. Dopamine is a neurotransmitter. So what can be done to help this person?
Give him more dopamine.
Yes, as simple as that. If you are able to increase the level of dopamine in the synapses, you may be able to help the person recover at least partially.
Good.
Dopamine cannot be absorbed directly, so we give a drug which will come in the next slide. So these are the clinical features which I have described. Tremors of the hand especially. Okay. Rigidity, we demonstrated. Akinesia or bradykinesia means slowing or voluntary movement or there is no movement. And then postural disturbances or instability, including shuffling gait. So just remember this. Tremors, rigidity, akinesia, and postural disturbance. Also, dementia is a common feature where the person becomes very forgetful. So this is the treatment, as you have just mentioned. We give a drug which is called levodopa, which will increase the availability of dopamine in the basal ganglia. So just remember this much, that the details may not be. So So finally we come to cerebellum. What I have already told you about one of the functions of the cerebellum. It is the little brain, and the most important thing in the cartoon is what?
Coordination of the thoughts.
Balance.
Balance.
Equilibrium. See, he is not on a bicycle, he is a monocycle.
Yes.
Can you ride a monocycle?
No.
Very difficult. Huh?
Yes.
You need extraordinary balance abilities. So, we have got three parts of cerebellum. We call it spinocerebellum, which will be mainly connected with your spinal cord. Cerebrocerebellum, which is mainly connected with your cerebral cortex. And vestibulocerebellum is mainly connected with your vestibular apparatus. Vestibular apparatus is present in the inner ear, and that is primarily responsible for your balance. Okay? So vestibular apparatus and cerebellum, they are connected through vestibular nucleus. So they have got slightly different functions, of course helping each other. And I will again emphasize that it is not necessary for production of movements, but it is essential for normal movements. Coordinates the movements, and one of the very important and simple thing is that the function of cerebellum is to make a comparison. I told you that whenever there is a command from cerebral cortex to spinal cord, the same command also goes to cerebellum and basal ganglia. It's like a photocopy. Do this. This is a command from the cerebral cortex to the spinal cord neurons. Okay. Same command goes to cerebellum.
Sorry.
Now, as the person is doing this, the information comes back to cerebellum. So cerebellum has got now two copies. One is what is happening here, and the other is what should have happened, isn't it? The command that was given by the cerebral cortex, those things are also there, and now what is happening is, so it makes a comparison between the two. If it is matching, okay. If there is something up or down, cerebellum can correct for that. Say for example, I want to touch my finger like this with my other finger. I am going like this. Cerebellum is all the time getting the information that where is this hand, is it approaching right or not, and it is helping me to touch like this. If for example, I go like this slightly, cerebellum immediately makes a correction that, oh, your path was wrong, come back. Okay? Without me looking at it, it will go like this. In case of a cerebellar disease, please come here. Now what you have to do is, keep your finger like this, and I am going to touch. I am going to touch like this. Okay. You can move it slightly here or there just to confuse me. Okay. So I can touch straight like this. In case of cerebellar disease, what you will see, just a normal person like this. A case of cerebellar disease, I have to touch this, so ultimately movement achieved. Okay?
Okay.
But how?
Not direct.
Huh?
Yes.
It's not a smooth coordinated movement straight like this. It is like, or maybe something like this and then like this. Okay? So this is in coordination. This is in coordination. And if you see the gait of the person, there is in coordination in the gait also. The first thing you can observe in a patient with cerebellar disease is that instead of a normal standing like this with feet closed, you will see that he will be having a wide based gait. All of you have been on a boat, a motor boat.
Yes.
So what happens in water? The boat is going,
Left or right?
isn't it?
Yes.
So do you stand on the boat like this?
No.
You always stand like this,
More base.
trying to compensate for whatever comes, isn't it?
Right.
So similarly, the person with cerebellar disease has to make all the time adjustment. He cannot stand straight. And if you ask him to say walk, and imagine that the left side of cerebellum is diseased, so the person would be doing like this.
The left side only.
Yes. So this is called a drunken gait, isn't it? A person who is
So it doesn't.
he is doing like this, isn't it?
It's not like the others. It's go to the opposite.
No.
This
Cerebellum
is-
is controlling the same side.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
So this is called ataxia.
A taxi.
Ataxic gait. So primarily spinocerebellum is more related to muscle tone. I told you that basal ganglia inhibits the tone, isn't it?
Yes.
Cerebellum is opposite. It enhances the tone. It increases the tone. So what will happen if the cerebellum is not functioning?
Decrease.
Tone will be
Decrease.
decreased. Okay. Also, we have just seen the role in voluntary movements, where there is coordination of ongoing movements, especially rate, range, force, direction, timing, all these things. Who is a good catcher? You can catch?
I guess.
Hmm?
I guess yes.
See, now because I have been practicing, if I throw this, I have to think in my mind how much force I should apply, what should be the trajectory, isn't it?
Yes.
What should be the direction, and at what time I have to leave the pen so that it ready.
Whoa.
Okay. If I have not practiced, maybe it goes here, it goes far away like this. Okay. Thank you. In a case of cerebellar disease, a person will not be able to learn this thing also. He will not be able to
Learn
learn.
this.
He will have to think hard with his cerebral cortex how much I have to
Throw.
use the force, when I have to leave. Otherwise, once I have made some practice, it's over to cerebellum. It automatically calculates, and then I just throw it at the right force and direction. Vestibulocerebellum, I told you, it is important for balance and equilibrium, also for controlling the movements of the eyes. Like when we fix the eyes, maybe we are moving or the target is moving, still we can fix it with the help of cerebellum, vestibulocerebellum. And cerebrocerebellum, planning of sequential movements, I told you the example like this. If I want to write something, so it is a smooth movement. Otherwise, it is. And motor learning, I have just mentioned this thing that with the passage of time and practice, you can learn these things. And this is what I initially mentioned about comparative function. By comparative function means motor cortex is sending the command here, and as the muscles they perform their function, they send the copy here, and there it is being compared. What is the command and what is the result? And these are the things. When there is damage to cerebellum, ipsilateral side motor function is affected. Ataxia is incoordination. Intention tremor, which I demonstrated that once the finger is reaching the target, this is a tremor, and ultimately you are able to point. Difficulty in balance, I have demonstrated. Walk with a bite base. Also, the speech becomes incoordinated. Something like this. Okay?
Okay.
It is not something like this.
Yes.
It will be scanning speech. And there is reduced
Hypotonia.
tone, hypotonia. And this is what I demonstrated with your colleagues. Loss of or damage to the cerebral can lead to incoordination, and it will not cause paralysis of any muscle. This is the gait, which is called cerebellar ataxic gait. All right. So these are about our motor system things. Even in cerebellar, if you ask the person to do alternate movements which are fast, like this, all of you can do very quickly, isn't it?
Yes.
A patient with cerebellar disease will not be able to. He will be doing. He forgets.
Yes.
There is no coordination like this. Like, okay? All right. Alhamdulillah. We have achieved major portion. Just 2-3 minutes more and we finish.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
There is no emergency class for anybody.
Yeah.
TTI asks. For respiratory free, 5 minutes more only.
Okay.
So brain stem, which we talked about a little short while for motor system, it is a station for extra pyramidal tracts. But in addition, there are so many important functions. Basically, brainstem is midbrain, pons, and medulla. So it is a link between spinal cord and higher centers. What is the importance? It has got number of centers. Cardiovascular center, respiratory center, digestive control centers are present there. It also regulates some muscle reflexes, especially which are involved in equilibrium and posture. And brainstem is the area of origin of cranial nerves. Like spinal nerves, we have got 12 pairs of cranial nerves. An important structure is present in the brainstem which is called reticular activating system. What is the importance? Very important. Because this is the area which is sending activating signals to whole of our cortex to keep it at a active level. If reticular activating system is blocked, person becomes brain dead. Okay? So this is so important a thing. It is responsible for arousal and activation of cerebral cortex. It has got a very important role in sleep and wake cycle and also maybe in sensation of pain. See, impulses are going everywhere in the cerebral cortex of reticular activating. So just remember this 1 or 2 points and about the hypothalamus. Anybody knows what is hypothalamus? Hypothalamus.
Regulate.
Yes.
Secretes hormones.
Excellent. It secretes certain hormones. Do you know any hormone that is secreted by hypothalamus?
No, it's by pituitary gland.
It's
It
controlled.
controls the insulin. Excellent. Very good. So basically the hormones are through the pituitary, anterior pituitary and the posterior pituitary. So it is controlling a lot of hormones, not every hormone, but a lot of hormones. And it's a very small structure. What we are concerned with primarily today, in 2 slides only, probably 2 or 3. So it is controlling a lot of vegetative functions. By vegetative function, we mean the processes which are concerned with maintenance of life, such as nutrition, metabolic, endocrine, eating, sleeping. So all these are vegetative functions. Even these bowel function, bladder activity. Also, it is a very important structure in controlling our autonomic nervous system. As we mentioned, controlling the endocrine function, especially oxytocin and diuretic hormone are produced in hypothalamus. Then there are a number of releasing and inhibitory hormones, and our main concern is thermoregulation. Okay?
Yes.
What do you understand with thermoregulation?
Controls the heat. Oh, controls the heat of the body.
Yeah, we have to have an internal temperature in our body maintained at a level around 37 degrees Celsius. It is not the temperature of your skin, it is the temperature of your core, internal organs, plus minus 0.5 degrees Celsius. So how the hypothalamus can control? Just remember this reflex pathway. So there has to be some receptors, there has to be a center, and there has to be effector. Okay? So in thermoregulation, the same thing is going to happen. So where are the receptors for thermoregulation?
Skin.
What do you think?
Everywhere.
Hmm?
Everywhere.
Such as? By everywhere, just name a few things.
Stomach.
Okay.
Small intestine, blood base.
In the skin?
Yes.
Yes. Even in the hypothalamus.
Everywhere.
Center. So you will have central thermoreceptors and you will have peripheral thermoreceptors. But more important, of course, is the central, because that is the thing where the temperature has to be maintained.
Change.
Now, if you are exposed to a cold environment, what is going to happen to you?
Rise temperature.
Hmm?
Rise in temperature.
No, you go into a place where there is ice and ice and ice. So how you are going to respond?
Sugar.
Shivering. Excellent. What else? If I put you in a box of ice,
Reflexes get fast.
what is going to happen to you? If you go to a abha during December, what is going to happen?
Cold.
Yes. How the body will react? What will you do? Shivering. And
Your reflexes will be faster. The reflexes will be faster.
which reflex?
Any reflex.
Yes, please.
The body will increase the height of the body.
How?
Metabolism.
Yes, you have to generate more heat. There is no doubt about that.
By
Construction of
Huh?
skin.
by many metabolism.
You can increase your metabolism, and somebody said something?
Construction
Constriction? What constriction?
of skin.
Vasoconstriction. Very good. So the blood flow to the skin will be reduced so that the heat loss is not there.
No.
And you increase the heat production by shivering, and you can increase the heat production by metabolism, increasing the metabolic rate, either by increasing the thyroxine level or catecholamine level. So you increase the. So these are called anti-drop mechanism. And behaviorally also you do like this, isn't it? You curl up so that your surface area is reduced and the heat loss will be reduced. So these are the two things, of course. You increase the heat production, muscle tone will be increased, shivering will be there, increased hormones which increase your metabolic rate, and skin vasoconstriction, postural changes to reduce exposed surface area, and this is how you are able to decrease. On the other side, in June, July, sweating is a very key mechanism. But there is a catch in sweating. So you have to reduce your heat production and increase the heat loss. So you reduce the muscle tone, you reduce your activity, you increase vasodilatation. So more blood flows into the skin and the heat is lost. And you do the sweating. Sweating is not useful if there is a lot of rutuba,
Yes.
humidity, because sweating loses heat by evaporation. So it is evaporative heat loss. So if we give you two conditions, that a person is exposed in dry heat. Dry heat means the rutuba is not there. Then the effective mechanism is sweating for heat loss. But if a person is exposed to wet heat, a lot of humidity, 90%, then this evaporation will not occur. Sweating is useless. Okay? Then the only way will be to protect yourself, go into a shade where the heat is, the temperature is less. Okay? It is very dangerous. That's why all outdoor work is stopped. If the humidity